Every day when I'm on my way to the swimming baths, I pass under a disused railway. And until this week, I never really thought about what it was. It turns out it was something called the Southern Route. The Southern Route between Liverpool and Manchester. And it was operated by the Cheshire Lines Committee. We spoke about them before in the last Bimble, my Trans-Pennine Bimble. The Cheshire Lines Committee was what's called a joint railway, and it was the second largest joint railway in the UK at the time. The line would have started out in Manchester by the Great Northern Warehouse and Central Station, not Warrington Central Station, Central Station in Manchester. That became the GMEX. You may have gone to a gig there. People like Metallica and New Order and Oasis played there. And the Smiths recorded their live album Rank there. As of 2007, it became the Manchester Central Convention Centre. So you're not likely to see any trains or any concerts there. Just caravan shows and sales conferences. Some of my bimblers who are into the railways may be screaming at the screen right now, Kieran, the Southern Route still exists. It's the one that goes to Warrington Central. It's the one that takes you to Liverpool on your bimbles. And to a large extent, you're correct. But the bit that goes to Warrington Central used to be a loop off the line. And what we stood on right now was the path of the original line, a straight line between Liverpool and Manchester. And that loop section that goes to Warrington Central would have forked off at Padgate Junction and rejoined the line at Sankey Junction. Speaking of forking off, let's bimble.
Easiest to make. Aim for the stars, it's yours, just wait. You do your best along the way. But it's those arms that told me I don't care if it's yours or mine. Without you it's just a waste of time. You showed me from the start such inspirations need a heart to bring you.
This lovely green bridge that we stood on would have marked where Padgate Junction was, where the loop line would have come off and split from the main line and gone to Warrington Central. These days, that's the way that the line goes, through Warrington Central. And this is actually a really good vantage point to see the curvature of the track, how it would have left Padgate Junction, and how the original line would have carried on westerly towards that railway embankment that I go past every time I go swimming. The fields around here are known as Bennett's Wreck, and that's named after the farmer that used to own the fields. And there's kind of a spooky story about him, dating back to 1925. He reports that he was harvesting his corn crops with two of his horses. And when him and his horses approached the green bridge, the horses stopped dead in the tracks. And when William Bennett looked up, there was a ghostly white figure in tramp-like clothing, stood on top of the bridge just like we are. At that point, the horses bolted, and William Bennett followed shortly afterwards, in a westerly direction, just like the railway went. the line would have passed over here at Orford Road. And then over Hallfields Road, over Orford Avenue, on the way to the swimming baths, over Central Avenue, and then over South Avenue by the old fustian cutting works. Fustian was a heavy woven cotton fabric that required special machinery to cut it. It was that heavily woven. Over by the Mackies on Winnick Road. Then it would have passed over this junction between Folly Lane, Lovely Lane, Lodge Lane and Busey Road. And you can tell the direction it would have gone because of where the new buildings are. And just before this viaduct, the loop line and the main line would have joined back together at something called the Sankey Junction. And this viaduct is confusingly called the Sankey Viaduct. It's confusing because there's another Sankey Viaduct further down the same canal that takes the northern route between Liverpool and Manchester. That's the viaduct that was built by George Stephenson. He had to build that viaduct very tall to let the Mersey Flats through, because the Mersey Flats, rather than being pulled by horses, were propelled by the wind. They had masts and sails on them. And this viaduct was no exception. But they came up with a slightly cleverer idea. You may notice a rather new looking concrete section. Well, that used to be a drawbridge that would open to let the Mersey Flats through. But obviously when they closed the canal and the Mersey Flats stopped going to St Helens, they replaced it with the concrete section. Trains still go on the southern route. It's the way I get into Liverpool on all my Liverpool bimbles. But instead of going down the nice straight main line, they now take the loopy line going through Warrington Central, which is in contrast to what happens in Widnes. Have you ever wondered why Widnes station is nowhere near the centre of Widnes? Widnes did used to have a station in the town centre, or at least what was the town centre back then. And it used to come off another loop, and the loop used to go away from the main line around here on Farnworth Road. Remember the name Farnworth? And it would loop round past Fiddler's Ferry into the centre of Widnes before looping back out again near Hough Green Station at Hough Green Junction. But unlike Warrington, they kept the main line and not the loop, whereas in Warrington we kept the loop and not the main line. Apparently you can still cycle down one of the sections of that old line, at least a little tiny section of it. But we need to bimble to Widnes. Shall we make it a proper bimble this time? Okay, let's bimble.
As long as I'm allowed to say, it's my heart that told me I don't care, you just disagree. Without you it wasn't meant to be. You showed me from the start, such inspirations need a heart to bring you round. It could be yours, big aspirations need a heart to hold you, heart to hold you. I don't care, you can say what you like. I'm a peace-loving person, but I know I'm right. It's as easy as right from wrong. I'm a lover, not a fighter, so I wrote this song. You showed me from the start, such inspirations need a heart to bring you round. It could be yours, big aspirations need a heart to hold you, heart to hold you down. From the start, such inspirations need a heart to bring you
And so we reached Widnes station, or at least that's what we call it these days. It was originally called Farnworth station, and the evidence is there. A large sign on your way in. Farnworth Widnes. There did used to be a Widnes Central station, and that was on that Widnes branch line that we visited in the last VT. But that's been knocked down, and it's a warehouse these days. So they renamed Farnworth station Widnes station. And that's why Widnes station is nowhere near the centre of Widnes. It's very inconvenient. There used to be a claim to fame that Farnworth station stroke Widnes station was where Paul Simon wrote Homeward Bound. You know, Paul Simon from Simon and Garfunkel Paul Simon. Apparently he was touring around the folk clubs in the north of England, and apparently he played a folk club somewhere in Widnes, and he was sat at the station waiting for the train, wishing that he was at home. And I have to admit, I felt like that in Widnes a few times as well. I jest, of course. Woolly backs for life. But some superfans of Paul Simon believe he can't have wrote it here at Widnes station because it would have been called Farnworth station. And when he told people the story that he wrote the song in Widnes, well, this station wouldn't have been called Widnes. So they believe he must have wrote it at Widnes Central, which is no longer there. Just to murky the waters even further, in a 2016 interview on Swedish television, Paul Simon said that he wrote the song in Warrington, which I find very hard to believe, because if he would have wrote that song in Warrington, it would have sounded more like, oh, worry, 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 Warrington.